Welcome to Crypto and Gaming, where we speak about tomorrow's games today. Brought to you in part by OneUpGaming.io, the metaverse of tomorrow today. Also brought to you by the Finding Genius podcast, discussing medicine, health, and bioscience on iTunes, Spotify, and all your other favorite places to download podcasts onto your favorite device. Hi, this is Josh Hale, and this is Gaming and Crypto, or as we like to call it, Crypto and Gaming. We are brought to you today by OneUp Gaming, bringing you extra life into all of your video games on all of your consoles, anywhere you are, anywhere in the world, today, not tomorrow. Joined today with Raj Chowdhury. He is the founder and managing director of HashCash Consultants. Welcome, Raj. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be on this call and this podcast. I think there is a lot of things to discuss about gaming and crypto and the intersection of those two areas. A lot of interesting projects happening in that space, and we'd love to discuss that with you today, Joshua.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your, Raj. Like, what are you doing in the space, and, why should people be interested in what Raj has to say?
So this is Raj Chowdhury, and I'm the founder and the CEO of HashCash Consultants. So HashCash is a company that's very focused on the blockchain space. We do a lot of interesting projects in the gaming area, working with various clients that are old school gaming companies, been around for 10 or 20 years, but getting into this new space of cryptocurrencies and playing this very well with crypto and gaming. So besides that, HashCash, of course, works in the area of supply chain and finance and banking, offering crypto-based, blockchain-based financial products to the supply chain industry, logistics industry, or the banking industry. We run an exchange called PayBiddle. We offer the exchange software to various gaming companies to exchange various gaming tokens that could be used to buy gaming collectibles or gaming items on a gaming platform. Then we also offer a payment processor called BillBitCoins. And what BillBitCoins does, again, is it's a crypto-focused payment processor. So you can say it's a PayPal of the gaming industry or PayPal of the crypto industry. And you can accept payments and various tokens on a gaming platform using BillBitCoins. So we have seen a large variety of gaming projects, and love to talk about that in detail with Joshua today.
Cool. So basically, you're kind of coming in from basically the opposite angle of where I came in to the crypto space. We are primarily on the companies I work with. We're video game companies, right? And what we're building is, what people would call Web 2 sort of games, things that are on your phone or on consoles. But ultimately, what we saw in that world is that crypto is creeping up, and it's creeping up in a way that couldn't have even been foreseen maybe a year or two ago in the world of gaming, right? Like, you have this idea of ownership over assets in the crypto market that didn't exist a couple years ago because of all the daggone lawyers like me who made everything that you were buying in the video game world a license. Now people actually own some of their assets, and it's become very interesting to see how that ownership translates. The idea of buying a gun that works in a game and then maybe renting it out to people because it happens to be the most damaging gun in the game or something. There's all sorts of neat applications that people are not thinking about today that are really pretty neat. And I think because of that, we're going to see some really cool things happening in the crypto space almost immediately. And some of that stuff will be stuff that we hadn't thought about. Think about the idea of the art that you're seeing in the NFT space. When art first came out in the NFT space, all you could hear people do was say, why would I want this piece of art that's, this thing in the NFT space that, I can't do anything with? And yet now the NFT space is a huge, huge space, and it's functioning and it's working and it's doing some really neat things. And, that is something that I think will be very interesting to see what happens in the next 5 to 10 years of, what is happening in the crypto markets because of gaming. I think gaming changes everything.
I think that's absolutely right. I think you are right on the point there. I think gaming and crypto has a unique, intersection, has a unique relationship. The kind of people that get into gaming and the kind of people, that are into cryptos there is a lot of intersection in that somehow. It's partially a mystery, but kind of the interest in gaming and crypto is aligned to a large group of people. So, and we have seen that time and again that large companies like even Sony, Electronic Arts, right, and a lot of other companies that you've heard about, right, are getting into the crypto space, and they understand the value of crypto and gaming and what their customers really want. So, for example, Sony, they're working on their PlayStation network, right, which includes crypto, into the game. That brings the crypto side of things. So through the crypto side of things, they're allowing their, PlayStation network people to buy collectibles on the platform, exchange collectibles using a gaming platform. We have seen people coming together, or companies, large companies coming together, which was unheard of before, in a common blockchain-based platform where you could interchange collectibles from one company's platform, a competing company's platform, to another competing company's platform. So that's
Right.
very, very interesting to see that collaboration, Joshua.
Yeah, it's a very interesting idea, right? Like, instead of thinking about everything being competition, of thinking of the world as more of a collaborative environment, particularly when you start talking about things like play to earn. You have games like Axie Infinity, which I talk about pretty regularly on this show, more than anything because people are familiar with it, that has a play to earn system. But with the idea of interchangeability of assets, what hasn't been brought up yet, apart from a few projects, one of which I'm involved in, is the idea of not only can you have a video game that has its own play-to-earn system, but when you bring assets in from another game, you're also able to bring in their play-to-earn system into a game that is not theirs. So how cool would it be to have a gun? Or I always tell people, like, how cool would it be able to have, like, Brad Pitt's head? Like that's your thing. And what you do is maybe every Saturday you do Brad Pitt Deathmatch Saturday. That would be so cool. And people would get into that, where obviously the only rule of Brad Pitt Deathmatch Saturday is you don't talk about Brad Pitt Deathmatch Saturday. Obviously.
It's a brand new experience. I mean, we haven't seen this before. It's a brand new experience, frankly. I mean, can you imagine that you could play loads and dozens of games offered by competing companies that interchange your assets from one game to the other? And you can play with people from different platforms. That's beautiful. I mean, something that gamers are probably looking forward to.
Well, the neat thing about it, too, is, you have this opportunity right now where you didn't have this years ago, where you can communicate in new ways. Like you and I are talking by voice right now, but that's obviously not the only way we communicate. You also have nonverbal signals, which, you and I are seeing each other on camera right now. And when I find something just completely not interesting, you might see my face do a frown, right? Oh, this is boring, let's go on to a new topic, that sort of idea. Obviously you're never boring, but with that being said, there's some very interesting things that happen when you have other ways to communicate. You have these games that are now worldwide phenomenons where somebody in China and the United States may not be able to physically talk to each other, but they can emote to each other. They can tell each other their satisfaction level at playing a game. And before today, today being, probably 2021, before today when they did that, if you bought an emote in Fortnite, you could only use that in Fortnite. What happens when all of a sudden all these emotes are built on top of blockchain and now you can use it in any game? So not only do I know that you're happy in the moment, but because it's your emote and you're the only person in the world that has that emote, I also know it's you emoting, or at least your system emoting. And that's pretty cool as a lawyer.
It's super cool, Joshua. And we have to understand the only reason it works, right, that where two competing companies can come together is because of blockchain technology. So blockchain can bring, the technology itself solve certain barriers that were not possible to be solved before. And it has the ability to bring these two competing companies together in one sharing platform. It's all about collaboration here, because blockchain allows you to maintain your segregation as a company, as your IT infrastructure, right, as your softwares, yet be able to collaborate on the same platform seamlessly as if you are all on one centralized database and server, right? So that is something that is super cool on the technology end that makes this possible. And that's what we are seeing now, that a lot of these gaming companies getting into the space, and they understand and see that potential and understand what their players really are looking forward to is more collaboration, more opportunity to do cross-platform plays, more possibility to play with larger group of people, right? and align their interests with, right? These things were never possible before, and what blockchain and cryptocurrency brings to the table today.
Yeah, there's some interesting things that are happening with the idea of, what companies are interested in. But one of the things I'm seeing right this second is this idea that there are no real ability for a lot of the Web 2 companies to communicate with each other in a blockchain space, because what's ended up happening is the games that are being made in Web 2 right this second are not necessarily giving, let me rephrase, a lot of the video game companies I know that are in the Web 2 space, they don't have blockchain developers on staff. And programming for blockchain is a different environment than programming for a game. When you're programming for a game, your entire focus is on programming fun. And the blockchain companies that are in Web 3, Axie Infinity, their entire subset of how they built that game is built on the financing side of games. Can you make money doing this thing? So I think there's a really interesting disconnect between Web 2 and Web 3 right now that's starting to happen. They're starting to think about these things, but they're not quite there. And that's why I think some of the tools that are being made that are allowing that in an easier way are so important right now. Some of the middleware that's happening. There's several projects that are, full chains that are doing that. There's some smaller projects that are doing very specific instances of that. So, I think there's some really cool stuff going on, but I'm curious as to when that intersection is going to happen between the Web 2 companies and the Web 3 companies.
You're totally on the point there, Joshua. I think we have seen a lot of that, and it's very typical of what you said. It's the gaming companies are focused on the entertainment side of things. They're focused on the fun part of things, the enjoyment, the experience part of things. And then blockchain is, a lot of it is hardcore technology where you need a certain amount of expertise in that particular space, So a lot of companies and clients that come to us are gaming companies, and we see they're asking us to build that middleware that'll connect with blockchain platforms, not just one, but more than one, and their gaming platforms. So that's a very interesting space where a lot of projects are being done in building that middleware that will connect the gaming experience with, the blockchain fundamental functionalities that would make the gaming experience even better. So that's definitely a trend that we are observing as well.
Sure. And that's similar to what we're building. I mean, what we're both doing is probably not too far from each other in some ways, but ultimately I'm not here to shill a project. I'm here to talk about like the cool ideas that are happening now. The idea that you can have a sword that works in one game that works in another game, and it doesn't necessarily need to do the same thing, right? Like that's where I think there's a lot of disconnect in the video game and blockchain space. Is let's say a sword is a sword in Final Fantasy, right? Everybody's familiar with the old Final Fantasy games. It doesn't have to be a sword in World of Warcraft. That same item that's an NFT, that's a sword in Final Fantasy, could be a piece of art on the wall of World of Warcraft. It could be a way to empower a car in a racing game. There's so many things that people are not thinking about yet, but I think we're so close. We're just on the precipice of this cliff where once people realize the power.
I must, sorry to interject you there. I must say that, I have to correct you there. So people are actually thinking about it. Okay. So, and it's not just a small, the smart, startups that are thinking about it. It's also the mammoth large companies that takes a lot of time to move have started to think about it. So it's not something new, and it's not something people are not thinking about. So the way it's happening, Joshua, that we see is via the gaming exchanges. Because if you think of an NFT, it represents a particular object in a gaming platform, say, right? It represents an asset on a gaming platform. Now, when you want to use that asset, which has certain value on that platform, as an asset and interchange that as an asset on another gaming platform, what they're doing this could be a rudimentary or a very basic, first step. What they're doing is they're using these gaming exchanges where you can change one NFT with the other. And then, you are essentially interchanging value there on an exchange platform. And then you're moving to the other platform and you're using the NFT to do other things, right? So that's how it kind of like sort of bridges the, the value of or the attachment of the product with that NFT that could be interchanged on a gaming platform, on a gaming exchange.
I think the biggest thing, what I allude to of saying that companies are not thinking about it is, I guess what I'm talking about more specifically is the idea that, you have companies like Facebook and Meta. What they're thinking about doing is bringing all people to their platform. And that is one way to fix that, thing, that idea. There's a lot of other companies that are trying to do similar things. Like I'm sure you're going to see it with companies like EA, Activision, Square Enix, things like that, where they try to bring people into their ecosystem. They all want to create the next Nintendo Switch, even though it may be a software-based Switch, right? And what I think people are not thinking about is the idea of decentralization, which allows assets to work outside of their own ecosphere. It's starting to happen, but I don't see it happening on the regular. I see more indie companies that are actually thinking about working with other indie companies rather than the big behemoths like you're talking about.
Right. I think the point here is, the large companies have so much of equity behind them, so their thinking process is slowed down, and that's how we see the rise of the smart startups, right? So as a startup, you're more agile, you have less to lose, you're more collaborative, you're looking forward to partnerships more than the large behemoths, large companies. So that's what we see, that a startup, the way they will win right now, the smaller companies are more innovative, more agile companies, is via collaboration. And I think that's what they understand very well, and that's where they would beat the larger companies, is understanding the fact that the way to build an ecosystem in today's world is to build an ecosystem, not try to centralize it, right? Try to decentralize it. And people, using blockchain at the core of the technology platforms, they understand that because that's the core of this technology. It's all about collaboration. And I think that's how the next generation of technology companies in the gaming space we would see a lot of those companies, rather than large companies, being collaborative. It'll take them a very long time. What they essentially want to do is create control in the platform, and then allow participation via APIs. But I don't think that would be, the way to go in this space at this moment.
But there are companies that are thinking about it, though, right? Like even the behemoths, and I say that being my own worst devil's advocate, right? Because I'm the one telling you, no, nobody's doing it. But there are companies like Epic that are saying, hey, man, we're in this space. This is something that we're already thinking about, and that's in, direct dichotomy to the companies like Valve that are saying, no, NFTs bad. No, you can't do this, But Epic is saying, no, man. You want to do NFTs in our store? Rock on, And the reason they're thinking about it is, I assume probably the reason they're thinking about it is this case that they have going on with Apple. And what they're saying is, we're creating an open environment, unlike Apple, and so they're using it, very specifically as a legal bargaining tactic. And I assume that it's some, daggone lawyer like me that's telling them to do this. That's a very real way to do business, is to say, look, we're creating a better environment than this thing we're fighting against. And so I think you have a company like Epic who very specifically wants to create this openness, but then they want a bite of it too, right? Like they want to create what Apple did with the walled garden of the iPhone, but they want to do it in a way that doesn't feel quite so onerous. 30% of everything you ever collect, that's a lot of money, man. You talk about royalties in the IP world, and there's nothing that's 30% of everything you collect forever. It's much less. So in this environment of, console maker being Apple, Epic saying, let's do things differently and let's use that as part of our legal bargaining power. And I think that's very, very interesting.
Well, certainly it is. There are really two obvious kind of strategies that we see today. One is creating an open system using the power of open source, opening up the ecosystem early on, right? And the other one is closing it, controlling it, right? But I think at this point, at the end of the day, every for-profit company is looking to enhance their revenues, to increase their profitability, and that doesn't change, right? So it's a way they get there, and one way is to create a closed, controlled ecosystem, which is usually preferred by larger companies. And then there are, open ecosystem from the get-go, which is what a lot of the agile companies and people who work with the early adopters are looking forward to. Because when you talk about openness, you get a natural edge over companies talking about closing down ecosystem, and the former is always more attractive to developers, to the community, and they all feel that they have a piece of it. But again, end of the day, the initiator of the ecosystem tries to keep the biggest pie, and we have seen that time and again.
And that's what's going to be interesting in this Apple case, right, is are they creating a monopoly, as it were, within their own ecosystem? Right now there's some question as to whether or not they can even create a monopoly based just on iPhones and iPads. That may or may not be a thing under the current law, but it's still interesting to talk about. And long term, it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, because I think the early adopters and the quick movers like Epic, I think that they're the winners in the next 5 to 10 years. They're the ones that are going to have an ability to say, we created Axie Infinity. We created these things that are huge, huge things that make your little company like Atari look like a rinky-dink little company. And yet Atari still wants to create its own thing.
Yeah, I think that's the nature of, things, right? So you look at Silicon Valley startup companies, and they have, obviously startups have a lot of challenges to solve. I mean, everybody knows about that. You lack enough cash, you don't have a market, you're up against everything. But then the other side of the story is you have certain advantages as well, which the larger companies don't, right? And the fact that you can take decisions more quickly, you can align yourself with trends more easily. You have less to lose. You can take more risk, and those things play as an advantage to these companies. And that's why we keep seeing the rise of the new Facebook or the new Google and the new Apple, right? So keep seeing that, and the reason is that smaller companies have that advantage, and they can cannibalize existing markets and create new markets more easily than some of the larger companies.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the name of my new crypto project, Less to Lose Gaming. I think that's such a great name, Raj. With that being said, we're fast approaching 25 minutes. We try to keep it between 20 and 30 minutes. And I'd like to say thank you for coming on, Raj. And I'd like to give you a little bit of time to talk about HashCash. If you have anything that you want people to follow or anything like that, tell them how to find you. And more specifically, tell them how to transact business with you if they're interested in what you do.
Well, that's great. I mean, of course, my name is Raj Chowdhury. You can just Google me. You'll find different places where you can contact me. You can go follow Twitter handles, or on Facebook page, or in LinkedIn or in other places. What HashCash does, I've clarified that before. HashCash is a development company in the blockchain space, and it's also a crypto operations and technology company. And it works with various clients in the gaming space. It works with clients in logistics and supply chain space, and of course in the banking and financial sector. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Joshua, today. Great to listen to your insights and discuss about the various points that are interesting to the gaming industry. And great to be on this show today.
Yeah, I'm a geek for this stuff. I love all this stuff, and I've given up some of the work I was doing previous to put myself fully in blockchain. As many listeners know, I'm an attorney in the space, and I work with a lot of projects, and I see a lot of neat innovation. And more specifically, this episode was brought to you by OneUp Gaming, and OneUp Gaming is in the business of bringing extra life to all of your video games. Thank you so much for joining us, Raj, and we look forward to having you on the episode next time. Thanks so much for listening, everybody out there. This has been a presentation of Crypto and Gaming Podcast. Thank you for listening. We are actively looking for more people to discuss crypto and gaming with and how they relate to each other going forward. You can email me at hello@tabletop.works, and we'll be in touch. We'd love to hear what you have to say regarding crypto and gaming. Thank you again for listening to Crypto and Gaming, the podcast.